A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to a special edition of True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Everyone in the world of true crime has a story to tell about a case that they worked on or maybe they lived through. Some are high profile, some you have never heard of, but they're all fascinating. Today's case is about a Las Vegas mansion run by a man who admits to being obsessed and sexually attracted to plus-size women. So he built a community where women could visit or live with him. Was it a commune? Was it a cult? Was it just consenting adults having fun? Many victims say that they were intimidated, coerced, and assaulted. It is a story about the lines between celebration and fetish, as well as the question of consent. And the survivors who came forward publicly say that they have been sued to shut them up. Our guests today are the team behind this new investigation discovery docuseries, Big Girls Wanted Escaping Pearadise, a documentary that examines if a place for plus-sized women was really a front for the organizer to allegedly violate women, which he denies. Here's a clip.
I want to feel loved. I want to feel desired. And that's not something that happens often to a fat girl.
I was scrolling on TikTok. This guy holds up a pair of bathing suit bottoms and he says, if you can fit in these, I want you in my pool.
Welcome to Pearadise.
Stefan's a TikTok creator living in this mansion in Vegas with all these plus-size women.
Everybody deserves to be treated with respect.
But
he's selling a fantasy. You'll be loved here, worshipped like a goddess, but they don't tell you the price that you pay.
you have this older man with women half his age, and that power dynamic is predatory.
He says, this is just a body positive space and I just love fat women and it's totally innocent when it's totally not.
There was no consent.
Pearadise is not a safe and positive place. This man is a predator. No one deserves to be a victim to him.
He gets off sexually watching people eat and gain weight. It can kill you.
911 emergency. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Medical. Had it not been for Pearadise, she could be alive today.
I need to finally tell my story.
Are you a dangerous man?
Big Girls Wanted, Escaping Pearadise, an ID documentary event. Premieres June 10th on ID.
So joining us now are the filmmakers, Tara Malone and executive producer Michael Hirschhorn. Welcome, you two. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
As I was saying, this is really fascinating. This case is fascinating. I watched the 3 parts last night in preparation for your interview because our producer, Will Updike, said you really have to see this to understand it or you will not be able to do the interview. And he was absolutely right. This is about a place called Pearadise, spelled Pear. And it is about how women are shaped like pears because the man who runs this in Las Vegas celebrates, he says, plus-sized women. And at first I was like, what is this? Where is this docuseries going? But it's so layered. It's so, I have to tell you, I think you two did a beautiful job of navigating a very difficult story to tell.
Well, that's a lovely intro, and B, a really perfect description of the project. Credit here goes to Tara, because I think Tara brought a lot of empathy and a lot of nuance and a lot of thoughtfulness to a project that could very easily have careered off in a kind of random direction. So she should answer this.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Anna. Truly, it's so gratifying to hear you see what we see in the story. It is on every level just a complex set of personalities and facts. And, getting into it, it was to do it justice. We needed to find that balance. We needed to lean into the nuances. We needed to, live with discomfort at times and run with that. And I think it's all the better for it.
And, on this podcast, we have examined a lot of situations where and I use the term very carefully, whether it's like a commune live-in situation, which then sometimes members worry, or the people on the outside can look at it and say, there's some things about this that could be cult-like. And that's kind of what drew me into this story, because you have this man. So this is a man who starts like posting all these videos on TikTok about his obsession about plus-sized women and how he has this home in Las Vegas, of course. Where else would it be? And he's made a lot of money, I guess, in chip design, and he's using this as a party place, but it's also a refuge. He embraces women who are plus size. He fantasizes about them. Explain to me, tell us what this Pearadise is.
Take it away, Tara.
So Pearadise, the origins, actually, it was very organic. Stefan found TikTok. He was not a content creator before that. He was a self-made nerd. He will describe himself that way, who in the middle of the pandemic took to TikTok, discovered what it was, and just put himself out there. And in putting himself out there, he got a massive response over time. And, he has said that it's sort of the first time that the women that he was attracted to were coming to him and were following him, and he was getting that validation. And from there, it just built on itself and built on itself. It went from him getting attention online to then, online account forming, to the online account turning into, let's have a party at the house, to the party at the house being, come over and hang out. The hangouts for some people became longer. There's some people, Pearadise is very different depending on which woman you are, where you're located. There's local people in Las Vegas, around Las Vegas, that come in and out, every day. They don't live there. There's others that will come and stay for a weekend that turns into a week. Some will stay for months. It's really a choose your own adventure situation within Pearadise. And over time, the content continues to churn out during these parties, these visits, and they built up a massive following. It reached around 250,000 and up followers. So it's sort of a community.
Millions of views. Millions of views. So it keeps building on itself, and there continues to sort of be a new class of people finding it and finding their way to its messaging every day. So, Michael, in all these videos that, he starts posting and it takes off, and then people want to join the party, if you will, where I get kind of confused is, what exactly is his home? Because these people are essentially have like these virtual relationships, and these women come to visit, and in some cases they come to live. And it kind of reminds me of the Playboy model with Hugh Hefner and the bunnies. It's very, what the heck's going on here?
That's exactly right. And a lot of people compared him to the plus size Hugh Hefner. And he has sort of said, no, I'm just me. I'm not the plus size Hugh Hefner. I think like a little step back, I think will help provide context. I think one of the things, one of the reasons we made this is, I think with a lot of empathy for the women. And I think what you discover when you're speaking to a lot of these women is that they're living in difficult environments. They're often excluded, mocked. They don't have employment opportunities. A lot of them are sexually fetishized. A lot of them, when they're in relationships, are in abusive relationships. A lot of them are very poor. And they go on TikTok, and suddenly in their feed is this rich tech guy in Vegas saying like, woo, we're having a party, right? And there's like a hot tub, and there's an indoor pool, and Las Vegas is the global home of kind of the plus size party scene. There's even this restaurant that I'm going to drop neutrality for a moment and say it's a pretty gross place called the Heart.
I thought that bothered me, Michael. I didn't like that restaurant.
Yeah. No,
I didn't like it.
No, it's just like no bueno. And it's called the Heart Attack Grill. And if you weigh over 350 pounds, you can eat for free. Like none of this is healthy, right?
No.
But if you're a person living, as one of the women says in the documentary, living in Alabama under, in a pretty lower class environment, the opportunity to come and live in a mansion at age 22 and be with a sisterhood of other plus size women where you no longer feel like an outcast. That's pretty powerful stuff. And that's what this is about, right? This is about the question of A, the way these women are treated in general, B, the kind of line between, as you sort of said, admiration and fetishization. So as you get into this documentary, we go into some of the darker worlds of frankly fat fetishization, and it's a fetish called feederism. And feederism, it's hard to describe, but it connects eating and sex. And the dynamic of it, not always, is largely men watching women eat or feeding women, and there's a sexual component to it of some sort. Now, the dangers of that are kind of obvious.
Yes.
And that becomes a key part of our narrative where, there's on the best side, body positivity. It's great to feel good no matter what your shape is. But there's obviously, when you get into some of the darker aspects of feederism, a health danger kind of kicks in. And
very much so.
Yeah.
Tara, there are segments in your documentary where, there are a few women who monetize this, through OnlyFans or whatever social media platforms that they're using, where men will pay them and to watch them eat. But what is so troubling, and the flip side of that is, while, everyone has personal freedoms and the idea that consenting adults can do whatever it is that they want, for these women who are very heavy, in particular, this constantly trying to make money, right, by having people watch you eat, and the more you consume, the heavier you get, and that is very unhealthy for some of them, because that's pushing them tremendously into a different health zone. And I was just very troubled by that.
I think what was important to me in how we approached this from the beginning was I wanted to look at everyone in this without judgment. Mm-hmm. For me, it was more about understanding the why. When you see someone engaging in behavior that to the outside eye looks objectively risky, I want to know how they got there, and I want to know why. Personally, I grew up plus size. So, there is an empathy that I bring to this, where I really, truly wanted to understand, how do you get here? And I did not know about many pieces of this deep layered world myself. So it was a learning experience. And, sitting and talking with the women engaged in feederism, you learn that it is a spectrum. There are the more on the outside, harmless looking exchanges, and then it can be taken to the extreme. And I think when you take anything to the extreme, you're talking about danger. But sitting and talking to the experts that we have involved in this and hearing them help unpack this idea of, if you're someone that has a traumatized relationship with your body, that from childhood has been told to make yourself smaller, to take up less space, to obsess over everything that you're eating, to eat less, and you as an adult finally have someone telling you, I find you attractive just the way you are. I find it hot when you are eating. You can see how there would be healing there. These women will talk about being not sexualized as kids and as teens. And this is sort of their first chance to feel sexy in the eyes of someone else. And you see how that can, be addictive.
So I want to talk about the house, because I think that's when you see some similarities with other situations that we've covered on this podcast. So he has something like 6 bedrooms. He has cameras everywhere. He is producing content. So he produces content. And then when you come into his world, either visiting or to stay, you're part of that production of the content. But then there are security cameras pretty much everywhere in the house. And here's the part when you've got video of, the women in the kitchen, and they're cutting up for the meals, that the understanding is that you can live here, but you have to participate in the cleaning, the cooking, the grocery shopping. Again, kind of like this commune living that we've seen in other situations. And do they pay anything to be in that house? And if there are only 6 rooms, like who gets the bedrooms?
It's different with each. It's funny. Stefan will refer to them as the seasons of paradise. That's sort of how he's wired each group of women that is, main characters, if you will, in paradise at a given time. And each one is a little different. It's evolved over time. I can tell you, the women that are in there now and the women that we've spoken with have said they've contributed to living expenses. And it is like what you're saying. They contribute labor to each other in terms of cooking, cleaning. There is an element of it that's the sisterhood as well, that, some of them will describe that as just feeling like they're doing their part. Others will feel that way on the inside and then will leave and feel very differently on the outside. One of the things that people agree on is that, money is not Stefan's main motivator or driver in this, that it is about something else for him. Sort of one of the rare things that both sides of this story tend to agree on. But there is definitely a contribution to this shared collective. This someone described it as a utopia in the piece. And you have to ask yourself then, like, why is it worth that? Why is it so important to them to then agree to those things and to want to do those things? And what is missing? What is broken that needs to be fixed that lands them there?
And I think, I want to pick up on what Tara was saying. He is having sexual relations, not with all of them, but with a lot of them. And so that is a significant part of what's happening at the house. Right.
And so the question becomes, is it or is it not consensual? And is there manipulation or pressure or other things? And you interviewed women who had radically different experiences on that very question. Some who claim that they were violated, others who said that they were not. What I did not see in the documentary, and I don't know whether this is something you can speak to, is for the women who claim that they were sexually violated or assaulted, did they ever go to the police? I didn't see that.
You want to take it, Tara? Or you want me to take it?
No, you can go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. So the league, you're correct in saying that. As far as we know, nobody went to the police to attempt to have to press criminal charges. What happened was a number of them went to an internet influencer named Kimmy, who started posting pretty relentlessly allegations of sexual assault, sexual abuse against Stefan. Stefan sued Kimmy and a number of the other women who appear in the documentary. And Tara, maybe you can remember exactly what he accuses them of, but basically of making false charges against him. Yeah,
slander and defamation.
Slander
it was a
and
defamation suit. Yeah.
So they then file a countersuit, an anti-SLAPP suit, which is often used as a tool to kind of shut down potentially expensive and reckless allegations, and the judge rules in their favor.
In the favor of the women, that they have the right to say what they're saying.
That's right. And that there's sufficient reason to believe either that what they're saying is true or that they're making those charges in kind of good faith, right? Mm-hmm. So from Stefan's point of view, he's never had a proper day in court. He has a lot of evidence that he shared with us as recently as 2 days ago that also appears in the documentary to show, from his point of view, that the women were acting consensually, or, and I think this is also interesting kind of culturally, that there's a kind of gray area in between total consent and sexual assault. And that he says, I'm not perfect. Yeah. I mean, that's a truly interesting question and a difficult question.
Well, I was very fascinated, because you asked him multiple times to get his side, and he clearly sat down with you to tell you from his perspective what happened. And you hear him say, that it was consensual. He denies any wrongdoing. However, he does leave some space there of almost, if this is how I interpret what he said, that if I misread the cues or I stepped over a boundary that I didn't mean to, I apologize for that. Is that kind of accurate?
Precisely accurate. Yes. And that he believes that there should be a space for that to happen. Right. And but the other questions, all of which are super interesting, right, are what are your expectations if you come into this house? It's a kind of freewheeling commune. You might very logically believe that you have an expectation that you should behave in a certain way. A number of the women say they did not have any idea that any of this was happening, or that basically sexual availability was expected of them. And then on the flip side, there's the kind of broad sense that if you're a large woman, you sort of in a way in society should be thrilled that any man is interested in you,
which is
right.
absurd.
That's the context in a way, right? Where we were sort of looking to get at some of the problems with the way in which, a lot of these women say they've been treated by society as a whole.
And so to be clear, Tara, Pearadise still exists, even with these accusations, these counter accusations, the lawsuits that have been settled, or tossed out, I should say, is probably more accurate. But he's still doing his thing, whatever that may be.
He is. He's still living in the same house that we filmed in, and he's on live constantly. It's just, a normal day for Stefan is to be on his phone, on the computer, on the internet. It's how he breathes.
So when he's streaming or whatever content he's putting out there, is all of it what I would call, I don't know, PG, or is there also, for those who want something a little bit more hardcore, is that part of this, and is that for payment, or how does that work?
No, Pearadise itself, the accounts that he manages outwardly and that you see branded with the Pearadise logo, it's the more day in the life, get up and eat breakfast with me, go for a drive with me, be at this party with us. That's what he takes ownership of. I think there's questions to be asked about what you see within it and who may or may not be hiding within the viewership of some of it. Stefan will tell you that his viewership goes up every time that they're eating dinner at the table, and that, in Stefan's perspective, that's people wanting to share community with them and be together. But I think, you have to ask yourself, who else is in there and what else are they looking for? And then the women, not all of the women, but some of the women have their own separate streams when it comes to things like OnlyFans and other platforms that they engage in themselves.
And
So
the other thing, Anna, that's crazy, and this is also, I knew nothing about this. There are a number of platforms, the most prominent of which is called Phoebe, which is essentially a kind of Facebook that is for feeders to connect with feedees. And
so kind of like a very specialized OnlyFans just for that.
Precise. Well, yes, but with I've never been on OnlyFans, so I couldn't tell you precisely. But my understanding is literally, someone is like, I'll pay you $30 to watch you eat Chinese food.
Yeah.
And then it escalates from there. So so I think what Tara said earlier is the part of the problem is that there's a kind of let's call it psychosexual satisfaction that can come from being a feedee, but there's also a straight economic sort of tethering, right? If you don't have a 9 to 5 job and you're making reasonable money through a website like Phoebe, you're in that life and it's hard to get out of that life. And that's sort of part of the problem here that we're looking to kind of get at.
Tara, I'm curious, what was the feeling when you walked into the house? Like, what's your takeaway? Because some of that stuff, it just doesn't quite fit into a documentary in the sense that it's your impressions.
I wanted to go in very open-minded, and you cannot watch a man like Stefan and watch an account like Pearadise and not just be curious about what it really is and how it works and what makes it tick and what is for real. So I tried to go in with a very open mind to meet him, to meet the women that were in his circle right now. And it's a disorienting feeling, I think, especially as a plus size person myself, to suddenly be surrounded by plus size women and only plus size women and be in a space where you aren't worried about if a chair will break when you sit down, where you could borrow someone else's, bathing suit if you wanted to go for a swim. It's hard to miss why that is attractive to people when you're in the space. And I was taken aback to talk to some of the women there and hear how convicted they were about what this place had brought to their lives. It sort of confirmed the approach that we took in the end of every woman's journey through Pearadise is unique and different, and it is a real range, and we needed to acknowledge that and sort of really look into those gray areas to do it right.
Did you get a feeling like of the bedrooms or how things operated? Was it organized? Was it chaotic? Is it just organic?
It's an average house. That's I think the interesting thing of walking in the door. And Michael has been there as well. That when you watch, it's prolific on TikTok in terms of how much you can take in and how constant it is. So you kind of go in expecting, I don't know, Willy Wonka, a fun house. And it's just a house. It's a mansion in a cul-de-sac in Pearadise, Nevada, just outside the Strip. It was organized. I mean, there is definitely a collective energy there in terms of everyone kind of, making lunch together, working together. Stefan has his bedroom upstairs. There's the other bedrooms where people will stay and, come for a few days or a few weeks. The girls that are staying in the house, longer term had their rooms. But no, I think what was fascinating to me was to get there and look around and say, oh, this is just a house. Like, there's so much going on here, but this is a house. Like, this is just a neighborhood.
But I think we have to say that for I don't know if it was every night, but most nights that at a certain point the stream stops and the party starts, and that is not, that's not a live stream on YouTube. That I presume a lot of it's recorded internally, but people are naked and they're in the hot tub and stuff is happening.
Right. Yeah, I think Michael dead on in terms of, we saw inside the house, but we saw, Pearadise. We started to call it Pearadise before dark and after dark, because a lot of, if not all, the women sort of shared the same rhythm of a day at Pearadise, a night at Pearadise, where everything on the live stream while those cameras are on is, PG at best. It is welcoming. It is body positive messaging forward. And then there's a moment when the live streams turn off. And,
right. And sometimes other people come in and it's not always, it's not always clear who these people are. So, it's if you're a 22-year-old who's not hugely experienced, it can be pretty shocking.
Mm-hmm. It can be scary. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Especially if you feel pressure. Do you have an opinion here on, is this a compound? Is this a commune? Do you see some cult-like behavior? What do you think this is?
Well, I
think it's not. Yeah, Michael.
You go ahead, Tara. No, it's fine. Go.
No, I think it is very much different for each and every woman that is in and out of that house. And I would go so far as to say it's even different for those women depending on where they are in their journey. There are women that will defend and fight for Stefan one day, and then they will find themselves on the outside later and pivot, look back at, the way that they were living or the things that were going on, and have a whole new understanding of them. So for me, it's never really been my place to make that judgment for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most telling exchanges I had was with a young woman named Shay, who I said, I asked all of them, do you see yourself as a victim? And she said, I am not a victim. People need to ask me why I want to be here. Mm-hmm. And that became sort of a guiding light. I wanted to know from them what they felt it was, why they wanted to be there.
I want to be careful not to say, yes, this is a cult. It definitely is a form of a commune. But, there's a lot of attention paid by the women to how Stefan is feeling at any particular time, right? And there are hierarchies within the house. There's sort of the inner circle, there's the outer circle. There are people that are invited to stay. There are people that are not invited to stay. Stefan, a lot of the documentary is about, and it's a really tragic story, a woman named Cass, who is kind of the, to pick maybe a dated reference, kind of the Marilyn Monroe of the plus size set. I mean, like stunningly beautiful and sort of whispery and inspirational and empowering. She was beautiful. And she was the favored one, right? And she stayed in Stefan's room. And then over the course of the documentary, and to be very, very fair to Stefan, a lot of this happens after she leaves Pearadise, sort of goes from being plus size, but active and vivacious and seemingly healthy to quite unhealthy. And then eventually she dies. And we don't know precisely what her cause of death was, but she was deep into the world of feederism, and was almost certainly being exploited by somebody in some way, in a way that ultimately led to kind of a tragic end for her. So it's fair to ask a bunch of questions, but in a way it's too easy to give like a pat answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I found so interesting about this series, because it was very layered. It was very complicated, and you presented many, many different sides and many versions of experiences there, which I think is what further complicates the answer. Like I watched it, and there's a bunch of stuff I still don't know or understand, and maybe that's just it. We can't always know everything. Did he willingly open his home to you, also knowing that you're talking to women who are accusing him of sexually violating them at the very least?
Well, what we said to him was, and I had an initial meeting with him. This is now a year and a half ago, before Tara was involved in the project. The first time we met with him, we didn't know everything that we know now, but I said to him very carefully, there are allegations that are made about you and about your behavior. We are duty bound journalistically and as documentarians to explore those and to approach those people to speak to them. But if anything that we find out, we will not be reckless about using allegations, because sometimes people make false allegations, and to give you an opportunity to respond. So he was well aware, or should have been well aware from the start, that we were not. This was never a puff piece. It was we will give you an opportunity to show your world, show why it's interesting, show why it matters, right? I mean, he advertises Pearadise as a place of acceptance and love, right? And we give him the opportunity to show Pearadise as a place of acceptance and love, but we also show the other side.
You know what I found offensive towards the end of the third episode? This is when it's more of a conclusion of what happened with the lawsuit, and, while the allegations still stand, I was very repulsed by the way he referred to the women who say they survived horrible things in that house. I mean, when I hear him referring to women who lived in his house prior as bitches, I had for me, that was an insight into this man. The man with the goofy Hawaiian shirt and the tie-dyed t-shirt or whatever, ha ha ha, having a fun time. And then you kind of see that. And I understand he was sued and he believes that he was unfairly accused, but it's not just one person that's making allegations. There are multiple allegations. I know he denies it. I just was like, ooh, that's nasty.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can see why you feel that. I think the reason we included what we included at the end was that he would put up a very polished front. And
I'm glad you included it.
Yeah, and I think we wanted to make sure that you saw him in a slightly less guarded fashion. And I think this is sort of in part, I mean, we wanted to put the women at the center for sure, but it's also a fascinating character study. And he said this himself, and one of the accusations about him is that he's a narcissist, and that and that he is not really able to see past his own nose at times, and so that there's always like a little bit of a gap between how he sees himself and how other people see him. But of course, that's what makes people interesting, and that's as documentarians, those are the people you're drawn to.
I wanted the audience to see Stefan as Stefan. Just no filter, just that is the experience. What it is like to be in Stefan's presence, having a conversation with Stefan. You need to feel that. You need to sort of see the never-ending quality of it at times, and the lack of filter to really make a decision about what you've just seen.
Yeah, exactly. And again, these are allegations. He denies them. There was a legal battle involved. So I just, again, here's what I can't balance here. He claims in so many of your interviews, he claims, if I did anything wrong, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize I apologize to them. I'm like, if I did anything wrong, like that kind of growth, if you will. But then at the back end of episode 3, where he calls them all bitches, I'm like, okay, then I think we know how you feel about these allegations.
50% of the viewers are going to come out of this the way you do. And then another 50% are going to come out of this and go, they're just bitter and everyone's too sensitive these days. And, and everyone needs to grow up, and, and this guy, it's obvious who this guy is. And if you don't want it, you could leave. No one was being held prisoner there. So you could come to that conclusion as well. And I think if we did our job right, and the audience will tell us, I think you get a really full picture of this world and why people make the sets of decisions that they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do believe it was balanced. And there were some things, like I wrote this down because I just love this quote. And I think everyone can just totally understand this. When one of the women you interviewed said, "Quit waiting to live your life until you're skinny."
That's Cass.
And I loved that, because I think we're all, wherever we are in our world, we're always trying to be, maybe, my tummy could be smaller. Maybe I could lose some weight, or maybe if I were younger, or, if I had fuller hair, or I were taller, or I was shorter, do you know what I mean? We all go through that process of figuring out our best selves. And in doing so, life is just passing us by while we're so busy with these things about ourselves that maybe we're not happy about. So when she said, again, I wrote it down, quit waiting to live your life until you're skinny. I love that.
Well, I've seen the ending of this obviously like 30 times now, and I cry each time.
Yeah,
it's like a really emotional ending. So it's I don't know. It's just this. Hopefully, in Cass, hopefully not just because she was so glamorous, but because of who she was and what she went through. It just, when she dies, it's just a very powerful moment and devastating moment that it should happen at all.
Yeah. I think there's just so much that you all touched on. Well, this has just been truly a fascinating conversation. And I'm just not complimenting you for the sake of complimenting you. I thoroughly thought that this was brilliantly done because of how complicated and layered your storytelling was and how compelling so many of the people were. So, I think you did it. The tone was just right and as balanced as could be, and that you were very sensitive to the survivors.
So thank you. And thank you for sort of seeing it in the way we intended to make it. So that's very powerful that you read it as deeply as you did. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. So we want to remind everyone that this is an investigation discovery docuseries called Big Girls Wanted Escaping Pearadise, PEAR, in case you're looking it up. But it's streaming on HBO. So that's where you can find it. I really recommend this. It's so nuanced and well done. And Michael and Tara, thank you so much. Where can people either follow you if they're interested in more on this? Do you have a website dedicated just for the docuseries, or where should we send people?
There is the Escaping Pearadise on ID hashtag that I think is going to be an aggregator of everything and all of the energy collecting online, which is growing. That is the one thing to remember about this story. It is such a social media online story. So, there's a storm cloud that just keeps going and going and going, and lots to dig into. So hashtag Escaping Pearadise on ID.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. This has been a special episode of True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. As we always say, crime never stops, and neither do we.